Let's talk to Bobby Marks, ESPN NBA front office insider, joining us on the Arizona Sports Line to make sense of all this. Bobby, thanks for the time. How's it going?
I'm good, guys. How are we doing?
Hanging in there, Bobby.
Yeah, I think we're just generally confused at this point. What happens next? All that talk of the Suns making a big move, and it feels like they're the only team that didn't make a big move. So if you were running this team going forward now, what are you doing in the next couple of days to kind of get everybody back on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, you've got to kind of put the genie back in the bottle, right? I mean, you've got some damage control. Certainly with that locker room, I would think when you have, certainly Bradley's name's been out there since probably mid-December when Butler has to be traded, and certainly with Kevin's name being mentioned the last few days here, I think you've got to make sure you do not have a fractured locker room, because this thing could go sideways really quick here, just based on they've got the toughest schedule among all teams remaining, and that's the priority. Usually that's your front office. Usually it's your coaching staff. As far as, but once you hear your name in trade rumors, it's there's a mental part of it also. That presents a challenge.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that, Bobby. As you look at the Phoenix Suns right now, Bobby, why isn't it working?
Oh, there's a lot. I mean, certainly, and listen, I was pretty high on what they were been able to do. In the offseason, certainly with Tyus and some of the moves they've been able to do, make, certainly the inability to close games, which I thought would have been more of a they would have been better at. They were certainly in the beginning of the year. It's mixing and matching, as far as whether it be guys out, guys in, Beal off the bench, Booker out, KD out. There's a lot of different things we can kind of, we can kind of poke around with. I always say it always presents a challenge when you have, three guys and you have so much limited flexibility, where you do have a rotating door of players kind of coming in every year, where even if you do have, and certainly with the coach too. I mean, that goes with the coach when you go from, when you go from Frank and Bud and Mon. I mean, the list of coaches that you've had there, when it's hard to put a system in place, and and the parts of the team changing and everything like that. And it's going to be a fascinating 2 months. I will say that. And it's going to be a fascinating off season here, because let's face it. I mean, I think if this team loses in the play-in, or doesn't make the play-in, or even loses in the first round, I would think you're going to have to pivot away from this roster that you started to put together 2 years ago with the Durant trade.
Talking to Bobby Marks. Bobby, you said, I think, the magic word in there when you said flexibility too. I mean, you see some of these trades that happened in the last week that, some of them were huge, but some of them were smaller that the Suns probably would have liked to have been in on, but they have zero flexibilities. Is that the top priority this summer?
I would think so. I mean, listen, you traded Nurkic. You basically broke up his contract into two players. Both those players have they're non-guaranteed. One's got a team option, but there's no money owed to them next year. It costs you a first in 2026, but that's the type of deal you're trying to get out of the hole, the financial hole. And I know finances might not matter, certainly to the owner, but we do work under rules of the CBA. I mean, that's the reality of it here. So you're trying to get out of that hole. Certainly you made a deal yesterday. The finances are huge on it. I mean, it could save the organization over $130 million in salary and luxury tax here. And that could be the starting point as far as how you try to retool this roster. But I would think the only way and listen, when we were talking about Jimmy Butler and all that stuff, all along, really, and we started talking about this week, the only way that Phoenix was getting was Jimmy Butler was basically using Kevin Durant in a trade because of the restrictions that you had with Bradley Beal. So I would say I said on TV earlier in the week that eventually there was going to have to be a Kevin Durant discussion. whether it's been this week or in the offseason, because that's really the only way you're going to give yourself ultimate flexibility. If you can trade Kevin, who will be on the last year of his contract, into whether it be players, whether it be draft picks, whether it be maybe you get all your picks back from Houston, for example. That's the realistic option as far as to give yourself the ultimate flexibility.
Bobby, I know you don't have all of the information, the inside information in front of you right now, but as you're looking at the construction of this roster, would you blow it up if you were in charge?
Well, listen, it's easier said than done. I mean, I hate, blowing it up means basically tearing it down to the studs. I mean, you do need to have some type of foundation here. The Beal thing, the Beal contract is still going to be a no trade clause. That's the hard part. It's not like you can, he's still going to be owed $111 million. He still has a no trade clause. He can veto any trade, right? Like that's, it's whether it be now or in June. I don't know if I'd blow it up and basically knock the house down here, but I do think you can do, I think you could do a retool on the fly. Certainly, listen, if the structure, and we've certainly heard about Kevin in Golden State, if you were able to pull that off as far as what you were able to get back, that's not a blow up, because you would have probably got Jimmy Butler and maybe Jonathan Kuminga and a lot of draft picks that were coming your way. Yeah. I think that's kind of the direction I would go. I think when you blow it up, and that means Durant and Booker, but you still have Beal and what's owed to him, that's really hard to do. You guys have lived through it forever before things really turned around with that team that went to the finals here. But I would be, and this is nothing against Kevin. It's just basically when you put Kevin's name out there in trade rumors, okay, and people can say they weren't shopping him and they were listening. That's fine. But we didn't hear Devin's name, right? We didn't hear Devin Booker's name at all being mentioned. So you're basically making a choice that if we're going to build this going forward, it's probably going to be around Devin Booker.
Mm-hmm.
Talking to Bobby Marks, Bobby, I know you said, what's the difference if you make the playoffs and you win a few games or whatever? Is there anything that can happen the rest of this season that you think could alter or have any impact on what they're going to try and do this summer now, or are they kind of already making up their minds?
I think you'd have to go deep in the playoffs. Certainly, I mean, I don't even know if that would be, enough. If you get to a second round, maybe that, maybe gives you a double take as far as what you do in the future. But then the $1 million question would be now if for Kevin, who's extension eligible this summer, to sign I think 2 for $124, would Kevin sign?
Yeah.
That's the big thing. Like you could go to the NBA finals and whatever, and he might say, you know what, I don't want to hear my name in trade room. Like I want somewhere where there's some I don't want to, go through that process and everything like that. So that really like what will happen with Kevin as far as from an extension standpoint and what the team does, that's going to play a huge role in this.
Bobby, it's always great talking to you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.
All right. Have a good one. That's Bobby Marks joining us right there on the Arizona Sports Line. He's probably had a long week.
Man.
The NBA trade deadline.
Thanks for watching Wolf and Luke. Tap to see more and click the button in the middle to subscribe to Arizona Sports.